All right, so this is our last homework problem from 5.2. Um, we have our x prime and our y prime here. Some important pieces of information are that we're going to restrict ourselves to quadrant 1 here. That'll make this easier. Remember what I was talking about when I said that these things can get complicated in the number of regions in the plane? Yeah, so if we're staying with quadrant 1, that makes it a little bit easier because the x and the y we could pretty much ignore because they're just going to be both positive. Okay, and so the first thing we want to do is sketch the null planes, and then we want to sketch in the phase portrait. And the phase portrait in this situation, um, for an autonomous differential equation, is just in our case, it's x and y. So we're leaving t kind of out of it, right? And so let's go ahead and do that. So we'll go ahead and sketch in our xy plane. Um, so x prime is going to be 0, where x is equal to 0. Or where we could say y equals 100 minus x. Okay, now x prime itself is actually x times minus y plus 100. So like we were saying in the analysis before, we could, if we were working with the entire plane, we could break this into 4 pieces, and we could analyze what our derivative is in each piece. But we don't have to do that in this case because we're only staying in the first quadrant here, so it's only going to be above and below the line that we have to worry about. And x we can just treat as being positive. So above the line or below the line is always easier because you can get the origin in there. So if you plug in x equals 0, y equals 0, this part is going to be positive. And so x prime is positive below and negative above. Good. And then the second part is going to be, looks like a circle, huh? Where should I write that? X squared plus y squared equals 2500, and that's 50 squared. So that's 50. So you'll notice that we do not have a point of intersection with this circle and the line like we had before. But again, we're ignoring everything but the first quadrant. Okay, and so we can assume then that y is positive when we go to do our analysis. And so inside the circle, it looks like y prime will be positive, for example, 0, 0. So y prime is positive inside the circle, and y prime is negative outside the circle. Good. All right, so now we're ready to proceed. Let's see, do I have any? Oh, I forgot y equals 0 is my other null plane. And so where are the equilibrium solutions here now? Here's one. Oops, is that one? That's where x equals 0 and the line match, but notice that those are both points where x prime is equal to 0, not where y prime is equal to 0. So that's not an equilibrium. How about this one? That's where x equals 0, so x prime would be 0, and also where the circle, where it's a point on the circle, so that's 0, and so that will be an equilibrium. Okay, so that is an equilibrium there. So we have an equilibrium at x equals 0, y equals 50. And then any others? That's not an equilibrium there, right? Because that's where both y primes are equal to 0. This one, this is an equilibrium because that's where y equals 0 and where the line intersects that. So these two things are equal to 0, so that is an equilibrium. And so that's going to be 100, 0. Good. All right. So now let's see if we can make some sketches in our phase plane here, phase portrait. So along this line again, x prime is equal to 0. That means you're only going up and down. Whoops. Well, I don't really need to put line segments here. I'm doing it anyway. But yeah, we're not interested in what's happening there or there. Okay, and so what's going on for this line segment here? These points are outside, the circle, and so therefore y prime is negative, and so they are going down. Good. And then along the circle here, we have horizontal lines. Which direction are they going in? Well, they are below the line, so therefore x prime is positive, and so they are moving to the right. Okay, now what's happening down here, for example? Well, down here x prime would be positive, so it's moving to the right. Y prime is positive, so that's also moving to the right. So this is moving in this direction, right? So you might draw in a couple of little sketches just to remind yourself what's happening here. And then similarly, what's happening up here is that y prime is negative, so you're moving down. And then what's x doing? X prime is negative, so you might be, I guess you're moving left. So you could be moving that way. Okay. And so overall, what's happening in your picture then is it looks like everything is kind of collecting. Everything is moving. Looks like everything is moving towards this equilibrium. So our analysis would be that 100, 0 is probably a sink. So what about this point? Yes, it looks like that's going to be a source. And so these are just predictions, right? I'm not exactly 100% sure, but that's generally speaking what's happening. And that's it. We're done. Good job.